Atomic Habits. Introduction. My story, how I discovered the power of tiny habits. The introduction of Atomic Habits provides the backdrop for the rest of the book by presenting James Clear's own story of rehabilitation and development following a catastrophic high school baseball injury. He starts off with a powerful description of getting struck in the face with a baseball bat, which inflicted extensive damage, including multiple fractures to the face and a medically induced coma. Clear outlines his long and arduous recovery process, which involved relearning everyday skills and gradually regaining his physical and mental well-being. Through this experience, he learned the significant effect of small, incremental steps. He couldn't return to sports at full strength but instead turned his attention to making infinitesimal gains day by day. Gradually, these little efforts snowballed and resulted in fantastic outcomes. Clear became a high-performing student, returned to baseball, and eventually received praise as a college academic and athlete. This biographical account sets up the book's central thesis. Success is not a function of dramatic action, but the cumulative result of small, daily habits. Habits, Clear asserts, are the compound interest of personal development. Just as cash grows through compound interest, the impact of your habits multiplies when you perform them over and over. He also suggests that our results are a lagging indicator of our habits. For example, physical fitness is a lagging indicator of exercise habits, and mess is a lagging indicator of cleaning habits. Due to this time lag, it's simple to underestimate the energy of day-to-day actions. A lot of people quit on habits prematurely because they don't notice quick results. Clear offers a strong visual metaphor, the plateau of potential waiting to be unleashed. When you begin a new habit, you're planting a seed. For several weeks, there's no visible change, and this can be frustrating. But below the surface, significant transformation is taking place. Someday, the habit emerges, like bamboo sending out roots for years before suddenly shooting up quickly. The trick is to hang in long enough to feel this emergence. The introduction also previews the tone of Clear's faith in systems rather than goals. Goals are good for direction, but systems are what advance progress. Habits are a part of these systems. Rather than fixating on outcomes, Clear promotes keeping an eye on the processes that create outcomes. He ends the introduction by assuring that the book will provide a thorough, science-informed guide to learning and molding habits. It will discuss how habits function, why they get established, how to construct positive ones, and how to dismantle negative ones. Employing a set of principles he refers to as the 4 laws of behavior change, Clear aims to equip readers with an instrument set for rebuilding their lives incrementally in small habit-sized chunks. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. This chapter lays the groundwork for the whole book. James Clear starts with marginal gains and takes the example of the British cycling team. When the team was taken over by coach Dave Brailsford, he only implemented small 1% improvements across all areas of performance, from nutrition and bike ergonomics to the interior color of the truck so dust could be more easily spotted. These tiny improvements over time amounted to remarkable success, such as several Olympic gold medals and Tour de France victories. Atomic habits are defined by Clear as tiny, consistent routines or habits that are extremely potent when regularly done over time. What's key here is the power of compounding. Just like money grows through compound interest, the impact of your habits compounds each time you do them. Clear stresses that success is the result of everyday habits, not one-time revolutions. Whereas individuals tend to play down small changes as being of no consequence, he contends that long-term results are in fact caused by the small behaviors. One of the most important quotes in this chapter is, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." Clear makes the point that it is better to pay attention to systems, to the processes and routines behind our actions rather than fixating on results or objectives. Chapter 2. The Ways in which your habits define your identity, and vice versa. In this chapter, the concept that habits are not merely focused on results, but also on affirming identity, is presented. Clear breaks down the 3 levels of behavior change. 1. Results, changing your outcomes. Weight loss, championship win, etc. 2. Systems, changing your processes, creating a new habit. 3. Identity, changing your identity, your worldview, self-concept, and judgments. Most people start by targeting results, but Clear contends that the most powerful and enduring change arises from working at the level of identity. When your habits are aligned with your identity, they become much simpler to recall and perform. Each action is a vote for the kind of person you wish to be, and over time, the outcome can be dramatic. For example, saying, "I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts," is more powerful than setting a goal to exercise 3 times a week. He uses the example of 2 people resisting a cigarette. When offered one, the first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." The second person is much more likely to succeed because they've internalized the identity of a non-smoker. Chapter 3: How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. Here, Clear presents the habit loop, drawing on the research of behavioral scientists. The loop has 4 steps. 1. Cue, the trigger that begins the habit. 2. Craving, the motivating drive behind the habit. 3. Response, the behavior. 4. Reward, the payoff from the behavior. Each of these steps is crucial. Collectively, they represent a feedback loop constantly reinforced by repetition. Clear defines the 4 laws of behavior change, which align with each component of the habit loop. 1. Make it obvious cue. 2. Make it attractive craving. 3. Make it easy response. 4. Make it satisfying reward. He says that if you wish to create sound habits, then you use these 4 laws. To eliminate an undesirable habit, you reverse them. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. This chapter is an introduction to the remainder of the book, which takes a closer look at each of the subsequent chapters describing one of the laws. Chapter 4: The Man Who Didn't Look Right. Chapter 4 delves further into the first law, make it obvious. Clear starts off with a parable of a paramedic who could tell when a patient was entering cardiac arrest before anyone else could see it. This parable demonstrates how humans build strong intuition by picking up on cues that others do not. Likewise, habits are formed based on our capacity to pick up and react to cues around us. In order to become more conscious of your habits, Clear recommends a practice known as the Habits Scorecard, where you write down your existing habits and sort them as positive, negative, or neutral. This brings automatic behaviors into consciousness. Implementation intentions is another effective strategy, making detailed plans when and where a habit will be performed. The structure is, I will behavior at time in location. Example, I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. in my bedroom. Clear also presents the habit stacking strategy, where a new habit is linked to an existing one. After I current habit, I will new habit. This strategy uses familiar routines to reinforce new behavior, so the cue becomes more conspicuous. Chapter 5: The Best Way to Start a New Habit. This chapter builds upon the second principle, make it attractive. Clear describes habits as a feedback loop fueled by dopamine. Cravings are not for the habit but for the reward that it brings. The more appealing a habit is, the more likely to be included in your routine. He introduces the term temptation bundling, in which you match an activity you would like to do with an activity you have to do. Only watch Netflix while doing cardio is an example. It increases the attractiveness of the habit and makes it more likely that you will continue. Clear also describes the role of social environment and norms in creating habits. We are likely to adopt a behavior that is appraised and approved by our culture, tribe, or social group. Surrounding yourself with others who already have the behavior you wish to acquire will help you establish a new habit. Being in a community where the desired behavior is standard will make you more likely to succeed. Chapter 6: Motivation is Overrated, Environment Often Matters More. In this chapter, James Clear refutes the popular opinion that motivation is the most essential ingredient for creating good habits. Rather, he believes that environment matters much more. By designing your environments to favor your desired habits, you minimize your dependence on motivation and willpower. Clear reference studies demonstrating how subtle environmental clues can have a dramatic impact on behavior. For example, when healthy food is put at eye level in a cafeteria, individuals are more apt to select it. Likewise, if you need to cultivate a reading habit, putting a book on your pillow makes you more likely to read at night. The main point here is that environment design can be an incredibly effective way to build habits. Make the cues for your good habits visible and obvious, and eliminate cues for bad habits from your immediate surroundings. Clear also recommends setting up zones for particular behavior, such as a specific workspace or meditation area, so that every part of your environment corresponds with a particular habit. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. Carrying over from the last chapter, Chapter 7 is concerned with how valuable avoiding temptation altogether is over resistance to it. Clear explains that individuals with high self-control are not necessarily more skilled at resisting temptation, they're just more skilled at avoiding it altogether. This is a fundamental point, as it raises the value of anticipatory action over reactive resistance. For instance, if you need to limit junk food intake, don't have it in the home. If you desire to spend less time on your phone, delete distracting apps. By eliminating temptations in your setting, you minimize the necessity of having to use willpower. Telling references several research and history lessons that describe how those with superior impulse control tend to thrive by removing the causation behind bad habits, instead of constantly struggling against them. Chapter 8. How to Make a Habit Irresistible. This chapter dives deeper into the second law of behavior change: make it attractive. Clear introduces the principle of dopamine-driven feedback loops, explaining that anticipation of a reward releases dopamine in the brain and motivates behavior. One strategy for making habits more desirable is temptation bundling, which we first came across in Chapter 5. Clear develops this here by proposing that you can connect the habit you wish to develop with a thing that you already enjoy doing. If, say, you enjoy reading social media, allow yourself to do so only after you have written for 30 minutes. Clear also addresses the influence of social groups. Humans are programmed to model the actions of three groups: the close, family and friends; the many, the crowd; and the powerful, those with power or authority. Surrounding yourself with individuals who display the behaviors you wish to adopt makes them more normal and desirable. Being a part of a group where the habit you wish to adopt is the norm significantly raises your likelihood of maintaining it. Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. This chapter continues the theme of social influence by emphasizing how deeply our behaviors are affected by the people closest to us. Clear notes that one of the most effective ways to change your habits is to join a culture where the desired behavior is the standard. He provides examples of how social dynamics can either support or sabotage our efforts to form habits. If you're part of a family or workplace where bad habits are normalized, like excessive screen time or unhealthy eating, it becomes much harder to change on your own. Conversely, aligning yourself with a community that values fitness, learning, or entrepreneurship reinforces positive habits through social validation and peer pressure. Clear introduces the idea of imitation and conformity. People tend to mimic those around them, so proximity to role models who embody your desired habits can be transformative. Ultimately, habits flourish in supportive social environments. Chapter 10. How to Find and Fix the Causes of Your Bad Habits. Chapter 10 sets the stage on reversing bad habits by identifying their underlying causes. Clear uses the reversal of the 4 laws of behavior change. 1. Make it invisible, cut back on the cue. 2. Make it unattractive, change your mindset. 3. Make it difficult, add friction. 4. Make it unsatisfying, add consequences. He stresses the value of self-knowledge and recognizing the authentic cues and rewards behind a bad habit. For example, boredom is an impetus to snacking, and stress is a trigger for scrolling through social media. Knowing that, you can construct more effective alternatives. Clear also introduces the method of habit inversion, a procedure where you make the unwanted habit more difficult and less desirable while substituting it with a good, pleasing alternative. He recommends employing mechanisms like commitment devices, such as accountability partners or public commitments, and environment adjustment to add friction to bad habits. This chapter solidifies the idea that bad habits don't just disappear, they need to be replaced and restructured by making the old routine less convenient and rewarding. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. This chapter focuses on the need for consistency rather than intensity. James Clear discusses how people do not create sustained habits because they try too much at first and exhaust themselves. The solution, he contends, is to begin small and to make progress rather than to get rid of things. It is better to do a little each day than to do a lot inconsistently. Clear suggests the 2-minute rule, which is to reduce any new habit to a version that should take 2 minutes or less to do. So, instead of saying, "I want to run every day," begin with, "I will put on my running shoes." This reduces resistance and creates momentum, which is greater in the initial stages of habit formation. He also stresses the need to be present. Even when you don't want to, performing the bare minimum iteration of your habit keeps the identity you're trying to create intact. Becoming good at showing up results in improved performance in the long term. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. Chapter 12 introduces the concept that human behavior always tends towards the path of least resistance. If it is easy to do a habit, then we are more likely to do it. So, to create good habits, we must make them as easy as possible. To eliminate bad habits, we must make them harder. Clear provides actionable advice like cutting the number of steps between you and your target behavior. For instance, lay out your gym bag the evening before or install software that blocks distracting websites. Likewise, he suggests adding friction to bad habits, such as placing the TV remote in another room or logging out of social media apps once you finish using them. Environment design also comes into play here. Designing your environment so that good habits are easy and bad habits are hard can minimize willpower dependence. Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. This chapter explains in more detail the 2-minute rule, whose mention was made briefly in Chapter 11. According to the rule, when you create a new habit, it will not take you more than 2 minutes to perform it. The point is not that the habit in itself will always be that minor, but that it's an introduction to more important behavior. Reading one page, for instance, tends to become reading more, and doing a single push-up can become a whole workout. Clear believes that the 2-minute rule is so great because it reduces the entry barrier. Individuals do not like starting new habits because they feel overwhelming. However, by starting with a minuscule, doable action, you affirm the identity of the sort of person you want to become. He also cautions against perfectionism and complexity. Most individuals procrastinate as they attempt to make their routine flawless prior to beginning. The 2-minute rule prevents falling into this trap and enables you to gain momentum by taking action. Chapter 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In Chapter 14, Clear introduces the idea of commitment devices, pre-commitments that lock in future behavior. These are strategies that make it easier to stick to good habits and harder to slip into bad ones. For example, you might sign a contract that requires you to pay a friend if you skip a workout, or use technology to block social media during work hours. The idea is to create an environment and a system in which the default is the behavior you want to adopt. Getting good decisions automatic, such as automatic savings or meal planning, eliminates the daily willpower required. Anticipate obstacles, suggests Clear. Commit ahead of time, and you'll be able to avoid the urge to make bad choices in the heat of the moment. Chapter 15. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. Chapter 15 discusses the fourth law of behavior change: make it satisfying. Clear states that we are more apt to repeat a behavior if it is rewarded immediately. Sadly, most good habits have a delayed reward, and bad habits tend to have instant gratification. To render good habits gratifying, Clear recommends techniques such as tracking your habits, checking off calendar days, making use of visual cues of progress, and utilizing reinforcement such as treating yourself once a habit is done. These positive reinforcers make the habit feel accomplished and encourage you to do it again. He also stresses the value of never missing twice. Everyone makes mistakes, but the goal is to return on track as fast as possible. One missed workout or cheat meal won't make your progress go out the window, but missing twice can be the start of a new negative habit. This chapter supports the theme that habits need to be rewarding in the moment to be lasting. The more fun and fulfilling a habit is, the better it will stick. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. In Chapter 16, Clear emphasizes the need to monitor habits to achieve consistency. Habit tracking is an easy but effective method. Every time you do your habit, you check it off in a log, calendar, or app. The visual reminder strengthens the behavior and provides a history of your progress, making it pleasing and encouraging. Clear highlights the psychological gratification of, don't break the chain. When you glance over a series of consecutive days of success, you're unlikely to skip and sabotage your streak. It becomes a challenge to yourself to keep going. He also talks about avoiding pitfalls, like perfectionism and getting too caught up in tracking versus the behavior. If you miss a day, don't worry. Perfection is not the goal but rather consistency. Clear restates his previous mantra, never miss twice. Missing once is a mistake, missing twice is the start of a new habit in the wrong direction. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. This chapter discusses the power of social reinforcement to create habits, particularly through accountability. Clear contends that introducing social stakes to your habits can have a radical impact on getting follow-through. Holding people accountable to someone creates an environment in which failure has a social cost. For example, you're less likely to abandon a regimen of working out if you have someone waiting for you at the gym. This outside pressure activates our internal need to be viewed as consistent and dependable. Clear also discusses a habit contract, a paper or verbal contract with someone else that describes your proposed habit and what will happen if you don't do it. Contracts are most effective when consequences are immediate and your partner is someone whose opinion you respect. Chapter 18. The truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. In Chapter 18, Clear moves to the position of genetics and natural tendencies in habit development. He admits that individuals are born with varying strengths and weaknesses inherent within them, and these can affect how quickly they learn to do particular things. Genes can establish the limits of performance, but habits, he continues, dictate how far one can go within the limits. The magic is in creating habits that fit your natural inclinations and strengths. The more you like a behavior, the more likely you are to maintain it. Rather than attempting to adopt a habit that becomes a struggle, look for one that satisfies you and harmonizes with your personality. Clear highlights that victory doesn't come out of raw willpower. It comes from playing the right game, the one you are more likely to succeed in due to the odds being in your favor. By applying your habits where your strengths lie, you are more likely to achieve long-term success. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. Clear says motivation is greatest when we have a challenge that is precisely on the border of what we can do right now, not too difficult, not too simple. This is what is called the Goldilocks Rule. If a task is too easy, we will be bored; if it is too challenging, demotivated. We are most motivated and developed if we have our just right challenge. Clear connects this concept back to habit formation by inviting readers to search for the balance between challenge and mastery. You want to stretch, but not so far that you snap. Small wins with just enough difficulty produce flow and result in sustainable motivation. He also cautions against complacency. Once a habit is automatic, it's simple to plateau. 2. He also cautions against complacency. The moment a habit is automatic, it is easy to hit a plateau. To prevent stagnation, you need to set progressively slightly higher goals and keep the experience exciting. Ongoing improvement stops boredom and keeps habits relevant. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. In the last chapter, Clear does a reflective overview of the possible negative consequences of habits. Habits not only make positive behavior automatic, but they also make us complacent and insular to new experiences. Once behavior becomes automatic, we no longer focus on it or learn from it. Clear recommends systems that have periodic reflection and revision. This keeps you flexible and makes intentional changes when necessary. For example, quarterly reviewing of your routines and goals can help keep them current with your changing identity and priorities. He finishes up by stressing that the point of habits is not to get a specific outcome but to become the type of person who can continually get better. The aim is mastery and not perfection. Finally, small habits are the key to long-term growth, and constant iteration is included in the process. Conclusion. The secret to results that last. In the last chapter of Atomic Habits, James Clear loops the book back around by distilling the major takeaways and inviting readers to cultivate a mindset of ongoing improvement. He once again reminds us that the strength of habits is that they can accumulate advantage over time. While poor habits can creep us into difficulty, good habits can change our lives through slow, incremental progress. Clear points out that true change isn't about making ambitious goals but about creating the systems and identity that come naturally to achieve those results. When you move your aim from getting a result to being the kind of person who gets that result, you create a foundation for lasting success. The conclusion also speaks about the fact that life is not constant. Things change, environments fluctuate, and new obstacles arise. Your habits, then, need to be versatile. Periodically reflecting, re-evaluating, and fine-tuning your systems keeps them relevant to your objectives and aligned with your changing identity. Clear also recognizes that failures are unavoidable. The trick is not to miss, but to bounce back fast. A successful habit-forming process is not characterized by perfection but by persistence and resilience. He returns to the refrain, "Never miss twice," emphasizing the need to bounce forward rather than perform flawlessly. The book concludes with a philosophical point: self-betterment is an ongoing process. There is no end goal, no ultimate expression of oneself. Rather, the goal is to absorb the journey of becoming that little bit better every day. It is this humble, process-oriented attitude that ultimately allows for real change to happen. Clear's last message is empowering. Regardless of where you are beginning, small, intentional changes can lead you to the person you wish to be. With consistency, consciousness, and the correct systems, substantive change is not just achievable, it's unavoidable. 10 reasons why should we read this book. 1. It offers a science-backed system for change. Atomic Habits is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral science. James Clear distills complex research into easy-to-understand insights, making it accessible for everyone, from students to executives. Rather than vague advice, the book offers a proven framework to change behavior through small, actionable steps. You'll learn how habits are formed, how they stick, and how they can be broken or reshaped. 2. It emphasizes systems over goals. Most of us pursue goals, but Clear contends that goals serve for direction only. What actually creates long-term results are systems, reliable procedures that condition your daily habits. Through this book, you discover how to create effective systems that make good habits unavoidable and bad habits impossible. 3. It teaches identity-based habits. Instead of concentrating on what you would like to accomplish, Clear asks you to concentrate on who you would like to be. For instance, rather than wishing to run a marathon, you take on the identity of a runner. This change results in more lasting behaviors since your actions conform to your self-image. 4. The 1% better principle is life-changing. Clear brings up the point that if you get better by only 1% every day, those small increments add up over time to amazing outcomes. This takes away the stress of having to make drastic shifts simultaneously. It's all about the power of consistency, not intensity. 5. It's incredibly practical and actionable. Each chapter includes immediately applicable tips and techniques, like habit stacking, environment design, temptation bundling, and implementation intentions. You'll not only understand what to do but how to do it in real life. 6. You'll learn how to break bad habits, too. Equally valuable to creating good habits is eliminating bad ones. Clear offers solutions such as making a bad habit invisible, unattractive, hard, and unsatisfying. These reverse tactics are equally clear and effective. 7. It applies to every area of life. Whether your interest is personal health, mindfulness, self-discipline, professional productivity, leadership, goal setting, or relational communication, parenting, the principles in Atomic Habits work across the board. 8. It's extremely motivational without being cliched. Clear's tone is real and down to earth, not puffy or exaggerated. He works with actual anecdotes, common experiences, and vivid metaphors such as the plateau of latent potential and valley of disappointment that make the content memorable and motivating. 9. It encourages long-term thinking. The book changes your orientation from pursuing speed wins to living by ongoing improvement. This is a sustainable strategy, both realistic and revolutionary. It allows you to create a life of intention, awareness, and compound success. 10. It's a book you'll refer back to again and again. Atomic Habits is not a read and forget kind of book. Readers come back to it time and again to reset their goals, reaffirm good habits, and get back on track after slipping up. It becomes a steady friend in their path to self-improvement.